Hey guys, it's Max. Welcome back to the channel. I really appreciate you guys taking time to check in. All right, let's see how the day finished up. It's just after 3 where I'm at, so probably just after 4 where you're at if you're on the East Coast, just after 1 if you're in California. All right, so I'm going to talk about ULTY, then we'll look at the buffer report and YieldMax, and then I'm going to go over some, I got a few comments on some videos I made today, and we can take a look at some of those. I wanted to address some of those comments. All right, so let's get the business over with first. ULTY grid, let's see how ULTY looked. Well, the average stock in ULTY looked pretty good. It was up about a quarter point. Now, ULTY itself, I can't even see. It doesn't look like it was totally flat today. It probably was. The market was pretty dead today. Sometimes it just doesn't pop up, but it's there. All right, ULTY was flat. The average constituent was up a quarter point. All right, well, we'll take that, I guess. I'm down 3,300 in my model portfolio out of 100,000, 3%. So that's in the past month. So that's pretty good, right? At that rate, losing 3% a month, I'll only be down 36%. I'll only lose 36% in a year, right? All right. Single stock buffer report. Okay. Single stock YieldMax land does not look great today. We had a lot of stocks pulling back. That really the only thing that was up is GDXY, and it was outperforming the underlying. Like I mentioned this morning, I'm thinking about putting GDXY or USOY or maybe both of them into the model portfolio. Dizzo did well. PP, PayPay, whatever did well. Abney did well too. Pretty much everything else was down, although nothing was although nothing other than NetFly was outperforming on the downside. All right, so index buffer report. Indexes just didn't move that much today. So, I mean, I just don't think there's that much usable information. Let's just see what killed it. Well, would you look at this? FIRS and FIRI. Well, that's really nice to see. You know, I saw kind of a critical video on the FIRI and FIRS. I mean, I don't know. I didn't really agree with it. But on the other hand, I don't have either of these two funds in the model portfolio, but they aren't the worst funds I've ever seen. And they're doing well today. And that's a good sign, because people that want to retire early, part of it is safety too. You know, if you're going to retire, I don't know much about FIRE, obviously. But I know about risk and reward. And I know that to try to do something that's at a young age that's ahead of schedule, you're going to have to make some sacrifices in your living style, which is what they do in FIRE, but also have to make some adjustments to your investing style. I think FIRI and FIRS are decent places to consider. All right. Anyway, you can see today they did a great job. They were two of the best out of all the liquid alternative stocks I cover. Other than IWMY and IWMI, which are also great stocks. And I'm not going to throw RYLD in there with it. I was going to throw RDTE in there. For some reason, RDTE was not on this list. RDTE, IWMI, IWMI, great stocks if you want exposure to that part of the economy. Anyway, those did well today. The bigger stocks, especially the NASDAQ stocks, just did not do that well today. I saw somebody on the news today, and somebody said there's 3 days left in the end of the year. It's been a tremendous year in the market. Most money managers are done for the year. So don't expect a whole lot the next few days. Although, having said that, I know this is me talking, not the guy I saw on CNBC. That was Josh Brown who said that last thing. But I know from my years of experience, even on days that are dead, but they're dead because there's low volume, you can get some really crazy moves. So that brings me to my next point. I showed you guys how to do a kind of an option YOLO, how to just buy a call. but I kind of went through my process on how I think about it and where to put the strike and how much to risk versus how much, and all that kind of stuff. I kind of did a basic, hey, let's buy a call. And I went through what you have to decide for. First thing you have to decide is you have to look at the chart and decide what you're targeting, where the stock's going. And you have to have a thesis, in other words. And our thesis was in my video. And I also did this. I'm also doing this. Part of it is because my system changed. I think I'm going to start doing option trades every time the system changes in the indexes to show you guys how to trade index options. Whenever it switches back to red, we'll put on some kind of protective trade. But for right now, as long as it stays green, we're going to try to ride it up. Not to mention, I like the trend of the last day of the quarter. There's something called end of quarter window dressing. It's the last day of the year also. May not happen this time, but what he'll do is it causes exaggerated moves on the last day of the year. So what I did is I showed you guys this option. We didn't want to spend very much money on it because it's a YOLO. It's just for fun. It's not, we aren't trying to build a portfolio around this. Anyway, here it is. I had some nice content on it. It was about a 10-minute video. I thought it turned out pretty well. Only 6 people have watched it. And I think the internet period is just dead today, not the market. Everyone's out doing stuff with their family. But it wasn't a bad video, and I didn't ramble about anything. I thought, anyway. So what we're going for, and I showed this on the video, our thesis in our head was that we're looking for a price of 610 by the end of the year. So if it gets to 610 anytime between now and the end of the year, we will be able to cash this in for a nice profit. Okay. If it goes to 610 pretty fast, like, let's say by tomorrow or something, or even let's say by Monday or something. Okay. Well, then, it's $400. If it takes the whole time to go there, if it gets there right at expiration and melts up into the last day, and expires at 610, it's right around 400 also. It's about 480 if it gets there earlier. 470. So that's what we're going for. Now, the thing is, I don't necessarily think if the market starts going, it may not stop at 610. I'm playing for a short squeeze. Still, you have to have a target that makes sense. But in the back of my mind, I'm also thinking there's a chance it could keep going. If that doesn't happen, that's fine. And then I talked about in the last part of the video, money management and how much to use on these types of trades. And for me, I use 5% of 1%. So I have a fund trading account that's 1% of my net worth. And then on individual trades within that account, I risk 5%. So that means I would have to lose sometimes 2.5%. Somewhere between 2 and 5%. So that means you'd have to lose between 20 to 40 times in a row. I would have to lose. This trade may lose. It only has a 22% chance. So if it doesn't win, that's fine. Down $100. Okay. The thing is with these types of trades, these YOLO trades, I can lose 3 or 4 in a row and then I'll get a $1,000 winner. That's just kind of the way it works. So. All right. So anyway, go look for content on that if you want to see that. Okay. So on to some questions. I've always mentioned I have really good commenters, keep me on my toes, smart people. And today is no exception. So on this one, D Boom was telling me that basically without getting into it, that my scenario was a little too rosy, and I don't want that to happen at all. I'm going to go back and watch that video again and then watch what he said. I'll make a correction if I had to. He's saying that the long was going to cost about $220, not $80. And I did not mean to misstate that, but I want to go back and see. So I'll make a correction on that if necessary. And I appreciate the comment. But the one I wanted to talk about, here's a good one too. You guys might like it. You guys might like this one. So then I had a comment from Still Horses and said, compare triple QA Dorsey Wright versus the triple Q performance. You remember the other day I was showing the Dorsey Wright fund called PTF. It's outperformed the NASDAQ over the past 10 years. and it's a Dorsey Wright momentum fund using the Dorsey Wright methodology. So I'm using that as a proxy saying, hey, I think Dorsey Wright's going to work for YieldMax because of that. So I think what Still Horses is going to say is kind of saying, he's saying, hold your horses, check out this other Dorsey Wright fund, which I have checked it out, called QQQA. Check it out because it's not performing as well as PTF. And he's absolutely correct. He's absolutely correct. So let me show you what I found out about that one. Here's QQQA's holdings. 9.3% Tesla, 5.79% Broadcom, Netflix, Amazon, Booking. Basically a big, big tech, big surprise, right? All right, let's do this. Yeah, so here's the 1-year performance of both. And PTF obviously looks a lot better than triple QA. Triple QA is also similar to what Dorsey Wright is trying to do. I will say this, though. Neither of these funds are going to pay a yield. And Dorsey Wright really isn't doing what PTF or triple QA is doing, because they're taking the highest momentum NASDAQ stocks and putting those stocks in an ETF. Okay. And I was trying to show that as a precursor to show what YieldMax is doing should work. But I'm thinking about it. There's an important distinction. With YieldMax, they aren't going to put the stocks themselves in there. They're going to put the high yield funds. So that's a little bit of a different dynamic. Now on 5E, they are going to put stocks in there too, but I'm talking about FEAT. Let's just talk about FEAT now. It's going to be all the high yield funds. So I started thinking about that after I got the letter from the commenter, Still Horses, and I was thinking, the thing is though, I still think I hear what he's saying. Momentum doesn't work all the time. Not all of them are doing as well as PTF. I hear what he's saying. He also made a good point, just a technical point, and I agree with this. I hadn't really thought about it this way yet. But I'll just read this whole letter. Compare triple QA, Dorsey Wright with ETF QQQ performance. Underperform triple Q. I'm concerned, and I didn't show that, but yes, it did underperform triple Q. I'm concerned this methodology buys rising momentum stocks, buying high, and then removes them when they lose momentum, selling low. That can be a problem with momentum strategies, and that is a legit concern. So, so thank you for the letter, Still Horses. I mean, it's a legit concern, but I'm going to say my counter argument to that, and like I say, it's not really an argument. I don't have really a vested interest, although I did put FEAT in my own money. I'm eating my own account. I'm eating my own cooking. I don't have any FIVY yet, but I would love to have some. But anyway, so here's my counter to this. So the one factor that we need to try to control for these high yield funds is everyone talks about days to recovery. And I've ranted before that's a bad metric. You've heard Jay rant because it's not fair. It doesn't have anything to do with the way the fund's managed. So it doesn't really show you that much about the fund itself. Well, in the same way that I am not a big believer in days to recovery. The reason I don't like that stat is because all it tells you is how good the underlying is. It doesn't really tell you anything about the high yield fund. It doesn't tell you as much because it's about 90%. The recovery rate time is determined about 90% by how fast the parent stock rockets up. So yes, this may not be the perfect way to pick them, picking momentum ones or whatever, but the idea is you try to stay in the ones that have upward momentum in a mechanical fashion. I think that the YieldMax, the Dorsey Wright version, will do even better than PTF or QQQA. And the reason I'm going to say that is because it's trying to help us identify the one factor that's that's the biggest factor in the performance of these high yield funds. And, you know, I just, I think it's, I don't know. I like the idea. I mean, I like it. It's to think about this. Okay. When you see successful traders on Discord, I know that's not where successful traders hang out, but I'm saying I met a lot of people that are on the Discord and they post their trades all the time. The people that are successful, and I'm thinking about, you know, 5 or 10 real people in real life. I've seen their portfolios and see the way they trade and stuff. What they do is they had MSTY, they had Coney when it was hot. But what they do with their own portfolio is in their mind, they try to stay in the 5 or 10 hottest. They're making their own Dorsey Wright with their mind. That's trying to stay in the 5 or 10 hottest. I'm just saying my mind, I don't trust my mind as much as those people do. I'll just use math and you know, moving averages and just simple stuff to try to funnel the better performing stocks into my account. Like I say, I think it's important to remember the stock itself isn't going into the account. The high yield ETF is. So it's like a derivative of a derivative. But anyway, and so for that reason, maybe it wasn't good to compare it to PTF or to QQQA. It may not have been, that may not have been a fair comparison. All right. So I appreciate you guys for listening to that. I think that's about all I had today. That's about all I had. I'm trying to think if I wanted to show you guys anything else or talk about anything else. Yes, I do want to talk about something else. I just remembered it. I want to talk about one other thing. Got a comment from Patrick. Patrick's a frequent commenter. I always appreciate his comments, as I do everyone's comments, even the critical ones. Patrick said for Friday, we would like you to do a simulation of FEAT. Okay, maybe looking at the components of FEAT, simulating what it would have looked like if launched 2 months ago. Looking at probably, I think that's probably supposed to say probability distribution, NAV, drop, and total return. Oh, looking at the probability. Okay, yeah. I tried doing it, but if you have the time, I'd appreciate a professional view. Okay, well, I appreciate that. My view, I'm a retail trader like you guys also. I'm not a professional. I was in the 90s, but that was a long time ago. I'm not a professional in finance, but I appreciate the compliment. So I'll just read you what I wrote him. I said, I can do you one better than that. I can tell you how FEAT would have done in the past year. So here's how it would have done in the past year. Well, we're going to get in the retirement simulator and take a look at it. But he wants me to do the last 2 months. The last 2 months is kind of a pain because I have to break out all the dividends manually. I just don't feel like doing that. Somebody wants to break out the dividends and give them to me for the past 2 months. Yeah, if they want to break out the dividends for the past 2 months or for whatever period you want to see, provide them to me. And then I can get in the retirement simulator, put the starting date and the ending date. It doesn't have to be a year. It'll just be whatever dates you guys used. And we can actually tell to the penny what it would have been. But I think going back a year is a pretty good indication. I think most of us be happy with this. So here's how I simulated it. So there's a couple of things that aren't accurate. They're going to reconstitute every month. I just assumed that the same stocks we've had this last month were the same ones we've been holding for a year. In reality, I'm thinking we would do better in real life. This performance going back a year, it's good. It is pretty good though. But I mean, I think it's scary because we might even do better in real life, but I'd be anxious to hear your opinion. Okay. So here's what I did. Here, the FEAT portfolios, these 5 stocks. And I do not believe in doing this. I believe in 60% growth, 20% some kind of fixed income, and then 20% high yield type fixed income. These funds we talk about, liquid alts, the fun stuff, right? Okay, so I would never do this, but just to see what would happen, I simulated if a person just put Dorsey Wright. That's all he got. Just those 5 ETFs a year ago, the 5 high yield ETFs. How would have he done over the past year? Okay, and so you would have started with $1 million, ending NAV with $929,000. So you lost $70,000 on NAV. Okay, now remember, this isn't really the Dorsey Wright portfolio. The Dorsey Wright portfolio may have kicked some of these stocks out midway through the year and put in some better ones. I mean, so, but anyway, be that as it may, lost $70,000. The thing, though, that you're really getting these things for, you aren't getting YieldMax funds for NAV growth. Okay, they'd be called NAV Max or Growth Max or whatever Max. What you're getting for is the income, and to make $569,000 on $1 million. I mean, what? Are you serious? So we have to take taxes out. So even after taxes, and not 569, so take $150,000 off that. Take 30% off for taxes, okay, or 28, whatever. Leaves an after-tax income gain of $409,000. It's $100,000 every quarter. A total gain of $339,000 because we have to subtract out what the NAV was down. So that's a 33% for the year return. I mean, that's pretty good. One thing I would be a little critical of is that the dead factor is more than 4%. So what that tells us, retirement planners say you can sell 4% of your assets in retirement, live off the cash, and in theory, you should be able to do that indefinitely. But I just don't like selling off my assets. So I made a corollary to that rule, and it's called the dead factor, but it measures the same thing. But it measures how much of your assets you're synthetically selling off. When you sell options, lots of times you don't really actually sell the asset, but what you're doing, because you're costing yourself some upside, you're having the effect of selling some of the upside. So anyway, all right. So 5%, that's a little bit more than we like to see debt factor. And once again, that's why I would never recommend a portfolio like this. What I would tell people to do is portfolio C. So that's 60% SPY, 20% bonds, which is regular fixed income. We need exposure to that part of the market. The government bond market's is a decent place. It can be a decent place to get yield. We don't want to forget about that. But so 60-20, and then put the last 20 in the Dorsey Wright feature portfolio. So instead of being 20% of all these stocks, it's just 4%, 4, 8, 12, 16, 20. Yeah, it's 4% of each of the same stocks. Okay, and then 60% SPY and 20% government bonds. Okay, so let's see how we did. Well, look, ending NAV started at $1 million, ended at 1.139. That's pretty good, right? All right, income for the year is $158,000. That's not bad on $1 million, 15% return. And how about 11% even after taxes? $100,000 on $1 million account. This is amazing. Now remember, these are simulated results from last year, but there's funds that really made this much in real life too, and more over the past year. But we're going back and we're saying something that happened that could have happened because these funds weren't even invented yet. It's just a silly exercise that we're just looking to have fun with. Okay. All right. So, but results C is pretty encouraging to me because for me, I'm not that extravagant. I don't need $400,000 of income. It's like, I would like it. Even if I had that much income, what I would do is contribute about 95% of it, reinvest 95% in the market. I want growth. I want my family to have money. I have enough money. I want my grandkids to have enough money. Their grandkids. That's more what I'm interested in. All right. So let's get over here. Portfolio C. So you could see keeping the stocks and bonds gave you a lot more stability. You actually made money. Where this one would have lost money, it didn't really lose money because of all the income. You're actually up 33% on the year, but a lost NAV. A lot of people are ultra concerned about NAV and don't even want to see the NAV go down 1 penny. Doesn't matter if they're going to make $1 trillion in income. They're unwilling to see the NAV go down. All right. Well, if that's you, 60-20, then some of these high yield funds mixed in, and you talk to your own financial planner, but try to less is more. Less is more. And the good thing is, since he's paid so much, just being able to use, you don't have to use that much, right? I mean, really, do you guys need $400,000 a year? I mean, if I was married and had a family, I mean, I'm not saying I wouldn't take it, but I mean, I just don't need it. I just don't need it. All right. So anyway, 100,000 after taxes. So that comes down to 9,400 a month. I mean, for me, tell me in the comments, could you live on 9,400 a month, or do you need 34,000 a month? I'm not saying I don't want 34,000 a month. I'm talking, do I need? For me, I think $10,000 a month is adequate. And anything that when I do make more than that, or if I make a good investment like I did in August and or like I did last year, sometimes I put it back in the market. I don't want to spend it. I haven't gone and bought a Porsche or anything. I don't need a Porsche. All right, guys. I keep thinking I have another point to make on this. Okay, let's look at one other thing. Just a standard portfolio with no high yield. So it's a 60-40, not a 60-20 and then another 20. It's just 60 stocks, 40 bonds. Nothing wrong with that portfolio. That portfolio had an ending NAV of 1.1 million, 1.15 million. Actually had a little better NAV than the Dorsey Wright portfolio. However, the income for the year was just $23,000 a month. I mean, for the year was $23,000. The monthly income of portfolio D was more than the yearly income of the standard portfolio. So there's some people out there that can live on $1,300 a week, because maybe you have other money. Maybe you have a rent house and they're paying, you have some other things, and $1,300 a week is enough for your cash needs. Heck, do portfolio B. I'm just really conservative. I'm just really conservative. I mean, I'm probably more conservative than you guys are. So I'm really conservative. All right, guys. I appreciate it. I don't mean politically. I mean, I'm a little bit conservative there, but I just mean financially, fiscally. All right, guys. I really appreciate you being here. And thanks for sticking around and listening to the extra stuff. I didn't want to make a whole video on those two letters, but they made good points. And I definitely wanted to address them. But I'm going to look at that first letter again and wrap my head around it. And if I need to, of course, I'll come on and make a correction on that one as well. All right, guys. Well, I certainly appreciate you, and you have a great day.